So I did this little protocol where, I got his hips and his lower back and his legs and his shoulders, everything warmed up, firing efficiently. He went in the ring, and within 30 seconds, he stopped, and both of his boxing coaches stopped and looked at me. They go, "What the hell did you just do?" Like, he improved by about 25-30% in like that.
I'm Garrett Salpeter, and I believe that the most powerful and transformative way to help people recover from pain and injury, heal from trauma, and reach their highest levels of fitness and performance is to focus on the nervous system. In this podcast, we'll share knowledge from the frontiers of neuroscience and inspirational stories of how applying that knowledge has empowered people from all walks of life to heal, adapt, and grow. Welcome to this episode of the Undercurrent podcast, and I am delighted to share this one with you because we have Brad Rowe live in person here in Austin, Texas, and we've been talking about doing an episode together for months.
Yeah.
And we kept saying, let's wait and do it live next time we're together, and then we finally, this weekend, had an opportunity to be together. We're filming a course, continuing education course here, using the Neubie for muscle hypertrophy and all the related considerations there. So I'm super excited to have Brad. Quick intro on Brad. Brad is a very accomplished professional bodybuilder and trainer, and he works out in the LA area where he's lived for the last about 10 years. And we met during a period where he was going through a challenge. He had literally just torn his bicep tendon, and we'll get into that. And so we worked together first to help him with some rehab, and then we've been able to work together very closely over the last few years. And working with Brad, we've been able to push the limits of recovery and performance with some very high-end clientele and a lot of different circumstances and situations. And I'm really excited to dive into this one. So thank you, Brad, for being here.
I want to thank you guys. I say this over and over again, but you and Neubie and the NeuFit have completely changed my life and sent me on a totally different trajectory. So I'm forever grateful for you and what you've created.
Awesome. I'm super humbled and grateful to hear that, and excited to dive in here and share some of those experiences with our listeners. So let's talk first about that bicep. We were doing a demo at a gym. It was actually over the Olympia week, right?
It was in August.
That was right. It was before that.
And actually, our first real interaction was my ex-wife had the major injury.
That's right.
And that's how
we
came across.
Her quads.
Yeah, she tore both of her quad tendon insertions into the hip. And what was the guy, the power lifter? What was his name that connected us? The big power lifter guy. I remember. We'll put it in the show notes, or we'll figure it out. Yeah. So anyway, I believe he had reached out to you guys and said, hey, there's this great couple. The wife just got hurt. What can you guys do? And so you guys leased us a machine. And with her recovery, she was supposed to be 12 weeks in a walker, and by 12 weeks she was leg pressing at about 60% strength. And then we sent the device back, and I thought that was the end of it. And just so happened that I was in Dallas doing a photo shoot at Destination Dallas for their 5th year anniversary, and I ruptured my bicep, and you guys were there doing a demo, and one of your practitioners was like, we got you, we'll take care of you. So you guys leased me out another machine and had the surgery, and using the Neubie for recovery, I turned what was supposed to be a 16-week recovery with no direct bicep work into stepping on stage and placing 5th at a pro show. And I believe I was curling about a 45-pound dumbbell the week before I left.
So it was supposed to be 16 weeks, and what week was that when you stepped on stage and won?
14 weeks.
14 weeks, won 5th place.
Yeah, and then it was 16 weeks without any direct bicep work, and I was 14 weeks stepping on stage with a complete physique.
That was so cool. I loved seeing that one. So just for context, so in the beginning, we had sent you the machine. You were in LA, we're in Austin, so we were talking with you on the phone, getting on video calls,
Skyping. Yeah.
And initially it was the just kind of lower settings, try to wake up those muscles, because after surgery, it's just this really interesting. We talked about it a little bit before on previous episodes, but it's this interesting circumstance where your body, even forgetting even the original injury, the trauma of surgery, the body doesn't understand that you've actually been put back together. Things are in better shape now that they're stronger. The body just knows that it's been cut into and torn apart, and there's all this trauma. And in response to that trauma, it shuts down everything. That's why there's so much atrophy. And so getting the Neubie on there to wake back up those muscles that normally would be shut down, would have significant atrophy, just changes the whole trajectory of the process. So can you walk us through, obviously we know that the conclusion of the story, you stepped on stage at 14 weeks, but can you walk us through kind of just roughly some of that timeline of how that surgery recovery went?
Yeah, so I was wrist to shoulder in a full cast, but once after, I believe, about 2 weeks post-op, we took the cast off, and I just went in a brace. And once we took the cast off, and I could actually get to skin, I would just put the pads on the lower part of my forearm and the upper part of my bicep, and I would just sit there and just let the current run through, and with that, you're increasing blood flow, you're loosening everything up, you're kind of just getting things moving, so you're reducing the inflammation, and as you know, DC current kind of has some natural healing modalities to it. So, for the first few weeks before I could actually get any movement, I would just sit there for about 30 minutes at a time with the Neubie just running at a very low current, just trying to flush things through and reduce that inflammation and try to facilitate some of those healing modalities. And then once we got into actual movement patterns, we did, your typical scan and search and find the neurological deficiency spots and just move through just simple movements, getting things firing and getting things activated again. And then slowly progressing onto very light strength training with it. And then as things got stronger and more secure, then we ramped up the strength training with that as well.
And so originally it was supposed to be no direct bicep work till about 16 weeks. When did you actually do that first direct resistance training with the bicep?
I think at the Olympia was really the first time. So that was about 5 weeks post-op was when we were all at the Olympia together, and we started doing some light banded work with some strength training and really trying to stretch things out and get some muscle recruitment with it.
Right.
And then it was just kind of a slow process, and I would say probably at about 8 weeks, I was back to being able to do some light bicep work, isolation work with that arm, but I was able to train back and train all the other body parts with really no issues whatsoever. So it was pretty remarkable.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And this time, unlike the previous, when you were telling the story of Steph and the quads, and you sent the machine back, this time we were able to get
I was so blown away.
Get you more of the training experience.
Right, not only with the recovery aspect of things, so because I didn't use the Neubie at all during that process for actual hypertrophy training. It was strictly just rehab, some strength training on the bicep itself, but I'd never used it on any part of my body. It wasn't until after the show that I still had the device, and I was getting ready to go out, and I did an arm workout with it, and I was so crippled doing that arm workout because no one told me that not to go all out, and I did an all-out arm workout, and I was literally stuck like T-Rex trying to walk around with this music festival with my wife at the time, and I couldn't even move my arms. I'm like, oh my God, this thing is amazing. So between the recovery process and how effective that one workout was, I was like, I need to buy one. I need this. And the rest is history. So. And
since then, we have gotten on the same page to make sure that you don't
don't destroy yourself.
We know that
there is a ramp up phase.
There's a ramp up phase. That's right. Don't get too sore out of the gate.
Yeah.
And so you then, just to continue your story before we even get into some of the people.
Yeah. So
you then competed a few more years, and you've been using it in your training.
Yeah.
Tell us more about
so
that.
I started utilizing it in my training. And again, I'm not that old, but I'm getting to a point in my age where, things start to break down a little bit, years and years and years of wear and tear. As I tell people that it's not my age, it's the mileage that I put on my body. I've beat my body to death from a young age, and there was just so many aches and pains. Like I need a shoulder replacement on my left shoulder. So training was becoming extremely difficult. I have an issue where weak hamstrings from like a tearing standpoint. They continuously tear. So there's been so many instances throughout the beginning where I was able to overcome some of these nagging injuries and issues that I've had, and the Neubie allowed me to train and train successfully, and really not miss a beat. I mean, even during that show prep for Romania, when I first originally tore the bicep, I had torn my hamstring in the middle of prep, and I would sleep with the Neubie on with low current, and I'd be able to wake up, touch my toes, and be able to train. And so I didn't miss a beat whatsoever because of that. So when I finally decided to become a practitioner, I actually cut my one vacation that I've had in 10 years short to come out here for the certification course. And then I went to Gold's Venice and started try to build a business, and you wouldn't imagine the looks and the stares and the comments and the talking behind my back that I got from within the gym and within the industry. Everybody said I was selling snake oil, and that I was just a fraud out there screwing people over. And so I took the brunt of a lot of backlash from an industry that's just very old school and doesn't want to progress in new age technology. But thankfully I've created enough great relationships with people that are very well respected in the industry that trust me, like Sean Roden's one, Dexter's another, who saw me and said, hey, if Brad's pushing this thing around, it's got to be for something, because he's not a bullshit kind of guy. So I had a few people give me an opportunity and allow me to get on them. And they were absolutely blown away with the results that they had. And slowly but surely, it became accepted. And I wasn't that crazy guy pushing around this machine with wires everywhere. I was improving people's lives. So it was a challenge at first, for sure. I think I was probably one of the first few people to really progress on the hypertrophy training side of things. Mm-hmm. And, there was a lot of challenges of learning how to navigate, how do you keep pads on yourself when you're training, how to, all these little tips and tricks that we explained in the certification course yesterday are all things that I had to figure out on my own. And there was times where I was so frustrated. I would pads would be falling off. I couldn't keep them on. I'd want to throw the machine across the room. And I'm like, nope, the workouts are so good. I got to deal with it. And finally, after a few months, I figured out a system, and I figured out how to make things work smoothly and more efficient. And I'm glad that I kind of just stuck to it and was stubborn and didn't just give up, because it's, like I said, it's completely changed my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, and figuring out with that much sweat and that hot environment, and using spandex and the right kind of tape, and there's a lot of variables that go into just practically speaking.
Even knowing how to run the wires through your clothing and all this stuff, and how you're not tripping over wires all the time. Because it's not like you guys are in a pretty controlled environment here. Yeah. Here I am trying to walk around Gold's Gym, one of the busiest gyms in the world, and going in between, different machines and training multiple clients at a time. And, there was just so much to navigate to in order to become successful. But we found a way. We got it done.
And that's one of the many reasons I'm grateful to you that you were definitely the first pioneer in really implementing the Neubie in this setting. Working in a really meaningful way in the bodybuilding community. And there's so many people there that need it, because, like you said, the mileage you put on your bodies. I mean, you were a high level Division I football player even before bodybuilding, but even without that background, the mileage, the breakdown, and so it's so cool to be able to help people feel better, be able to train again, be able to work through those aches and pains and injuries and compensatory patterns and the things that just cause people to get so frustrated because they feel like they're running an uphill battle, like they're constantly banging their heads against the wall.
They hold us back, and they force us into early retirement, or they force us into never achieving our true potential.
Yeah. Speaking of avoiding early retirement, that's a good segue into, you mentioned Dexter, so let's talk about Dexter Jackson, who won Mr. Olympia in 2008.
Yes.
And competed in how many Mr. Olympias?
He hit 20 Mr. Olympias.
20 Mr. Olympias.
That is absolutely unheard of. It will never be accomplished again. He is just an absolute icon in the sport.
Yes. And can you talk about your experience working with him?
So, Dexter, when we started working together, Dexter's a little older. And as we know that as we get older, the first things that go is our legs. Neurologically, we start having a lot of impedances because we have compression issues in our spine and our hips and things like that. So neurologically, things aren't firing efficiently in the legs. And you'll see that as athletes get older, their legs get a little smaller, a little softer, a little less detail. And Dexter was struggling with that. He was on the brink of being forced into retirement because his legs were extremely subpar. So I was on his case a little bit, like, hey, just give me a shot. Let me get you on the workout once. So we got one quad workout in. He was blown away at how sore he was for the little amount of work that he did. And but Dexter was kind of a tough one to crack because he absolutely hates the feeling of the Neubie. Mm-hmm. Well, at first, it's a strong vibration. It's not painful whatsoever, but some people just don't like that feeling. And so he hated training on the Neubie, but liked kind of potentially what he saw. So going into the Olympia in 2019, he said, all right, I want to hire you to come train me just once a week on quads. So he was still being trained by Charles Glass. So I would just join the session in, I would hook him up, and I would let Charles run the session. Charles is the head trainer. I'm just there. Obviously, at first, I had to dictate to Charles, how much volume we were doing and how hard we were pushing it because, as you know, there's a ramp up phase and you just can't do what you normally do right out of the gate. So Charles at least trusted me through that process of hey, we're only working at 60% this week and the slow ramp up phase. So we got in, I believe it was 16 quad sessions before the Olympia. And
once a week, just one a week, yeah.
Once a week. Mm-hmm. I think we were at like 14 sessions actually. And I can send you the photo so you can pop in here, but the changes to Dexter's legs were just absolutely out of this world phenomenal. Like there's no way a 49-year-old man improves his legs that much in such a short period of time. And it was
changing no other variables.
Right, dude. And it was the talk of the town. And on top of that, Dexter had suffered from a lot of knee pain. Leg training was very difficult. He had to wrap his knees all the time and just suffered with severe pain days on end after training. And he wasn't feeling any pain whatsoever. It was the first time in 10 plus years that he wasn't dealing with debilitating knee pain because of training with the Neubie. Our loads were a little lighter at first. I mean, he ended up working up to a place where he was at pretty much full load, but everything's firing efficiently. So, you're having proper displacement of that load instead of when things aren't firing efficiently, you're having displacement on certain parts of your knee, which is going to cause more wear and tear and more inflammation. So things were firing more efficiently, which was, putting that load throughout the entire leg and not focus so much on the knee. And so from not only from a physique standpoint, but from a quality of life standpoint, he was so blown away. So we continued to work together.
So in that Olympia, so he was 49 years old.
49
tell everyone
years old.
How he fared in that.
So he ended up getting 5th in that Olympia, and everybody had projected him to be close to being outside of the top 10. And 5th at the Mr. Olympia. I mean, you're competing with guys in their 30s, late 30s. As a bodybuilder, your prime is from 33 to about 37, 38. And here he is
not 49.
Right, here he is at 49, competing with kids, 10, 15 plus years
so cool.
Younger than him, So it definitely revitalized his career. And we continued on and we prepped, again, just quads only into the Arnold. And then COVID hit and the world kind of got turned upside down. And he was preparing for his final Mr. Olympia and was so happy with his results from what we did with the quad workouts that he trusted me to train him every day on the Neubie going into his final Olympia. So, and I was his head trainer, which was, for me, such an honor. Dexter was an icon, one of those guys that I looked up to for years. And Dexter and I actually trained together for a little bit when I was young and an up-and-coming amateur. So to have someone like that trust me with their training for their final show was that was such an honor to me, and I was so grateful to be a part of that. So, and he went out, he got, where did he place? 7th, I believe, this year. It wasn't his best showing. There was some other factors that kind of played into him not looking his best, which, I'll say here, part of it was training on the Neubie every day drastically increased his metabolic output, and his nutrition didn't support that.
You need more. You need more fuel.
He needed more fuel, so he was catabolic a lot and kind of lost his pop. But during that whole time phase, he was so happy because all of his joints felt great. He was training. He loved the training. He actually got to a point that he learned to love the feeling of the Neubie. And like, if he ever trained without it, he's like, man, I don't even like training without it anymore. I used to hate this thing. Now I don't want to train without it. So it was a hell of a journey. And I think he still has the desire to do one more show. He has a really large fan base in Brazil, and it's the one show he hasn't done. So I'm hoping I can get redemption and get him back one more time to do things properly this time and make sure that nutrition matches output, so that we can really show what training with it will do.
That's awesome. And I just have to acknowledge the work that you're doing. You can take this machine, you can put it in the hands of someone else, and you maybe get some good results, in other areas. But to really apply it, you have done a lot of the work to really perfect, or at least refine and optimize the ways to apply the Neubie in this realm of high level bodybuilding, and being able to work with people like Dexter. So it's been a team effort. It's definitely not just the machine. If anything, that's the icing on the cake for your skill set and your knowledge and your experience. And so I love the partnership that we've been able to cultivate, and the ways we've been able to work together in this realm.
If you're ready to supercharge your practice, listen to this. Garrett and Team NeuFit have just released a new online course entitled Introduction to the NeuFit Method. In this detailed 8-hour course, you'll gain mastery of the fundamental techniques in our practice, including muscle testing and activations, nerve glides, and joint articulations. You'll also get introduced to our patented direct current stimulation device, the Neubie, an incredible machine that's empowered professionals just like you to help their patients heal, adapt, and grow faster than they ever thought possible. To learn more, go to www.neu.fit/learn. And now back to the show.
Another person that you've been able to work with and really kind of combine that same work that you've done to optimize how to implement the Neubie in training, and also blend in some rehab and everything. Another person you've been able to really positively impact is Mike Tyson. So I know several people listening to this podcast have seen some of the videos of you working with Mike to help him prep for the fight that he had with Roy Jones Jr., coming back into the ring at 53 years old after being out for more than a decade. Can you talk about your experience working with Iron Mike?
So my first introduction with Mike was kind of an hilarious story. So there I was at Gold's Gym training, and I have a client that had just gone into a business venture with Mike. And he texts me out of the blue. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm working." He's like, "You got to get down to Tyson Ranch." He's like, "I told Mike about the machine and he wants you to come." I'm like, "Okay." So I cancel my next couple clients. I pack up the Neubie. I head down to El Segundo, which is only like 15 minutes from where I was. And I show up, and Mike, being Mike, is sitting there on the couch, smoking this gigantic blunt, high as hell on mushrooms. And I walk in, and he's like, "Who's this big mofo?" I'm like, he's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "What is that thing?" He's like, "Did that thing make you look like you?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's how I look like this because of this." He's like, "Let's do it." So Mike had been dealing with a really bad lower back pain and some shoulder pain. So I put him through a little demo, just getting his back loosened up and getting his shoulder loosened up. And Mike was so high, he didn't remember anything. He had this fake plant that was sitting there, and I had him doing rows, just reaching forward, and he just kept grabbing leaves off this plant, just ripping this plant to pieces. And like, Mike, back up. He'd back up a couple feet, and then slowly start like shifting back to it, just tearing apart this fake plant that he had. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, he's not gonna remember anything, but I got the experience. I'm like, whatever, it was worth it. You know, it was an opportunity. So I left, and also the next day, Mike wakes up and he's like, why is my back feels good, my shoulder feels good. He looks at his wife, he's like, I feel good today, baby. She's like, yeah, you don't remember that guy? He's like, what guy? She's like, the guy with the machine. He's like, what guy with the machine? He's like, bring his ass back. So I get a text like, hey, can you come back and see Mike? I'm like, okay. So I had sober Mike this time and worked on him, and you know, his wife, her and I exchanged numbers, and she's like, you know, we'd love to have you come and work on Mike like 3 times a week to do some rehab work on him. So that's how the relationship started. So I would go to either Tyson Ranch, which is in El Segundo, not far from my house, or I'd go down to Newport where they live and work on him. And, you know, it was pretty consistent for a couple months, and then COVID hit. And, you know, he went MIA because everything got shut down, and I didn't know if I was ever going to see him again. And then I don't know if you guys saw that one first viral video that went out of Mike boxing, where he looked so phenomenally quick. And but in that instant, Mike threw his back out. So his first time back with the mitts on and in the ring, he looked phenomenal, but he was crippled. So I get a call, hey, can you come to the house? Mike can't move. So I go to the house. Mike's laying there in his whitey tighties on the bed. I can't move, you gotta help me. So I hook him up, I get him moving, and we start the process again of just rehab a couple times a week. So I explained to Mike, I was like, hey, I'm like, let me try this on you one day. I'm like, let me warm up your hips, your legs, and your shoulders before you get in the ring. I promise you're gonna move a lot more efficient. It's gonna save a lot of time on the warm up, and it's going to increase longevity. So he trusts me. He's like, okay, let's do it. So I did this little protocol where, you know, I got his hips and his lower back and his legs and his shoulders, everything warmed up, firing efficiently. He went in the ring, and within 30 seconds, he stopped, and both of his boxing coaches stopped and looked at me. They go, what the hell did you just do? Like, he improved by about 25-30% in like that. So now it was, you're coming to the office every single day, and you're going to warm him up on the machine before he gets in the ring. A couple weeks go by, and I was like, Mike, you know, he was talking about weight training, and he just kept like straining stuff when he was weight training. I'm like, Mike, this is also great for weight training as well. I'm like, let me get you on it. He's like, he kept kind of just dodging it. And so, amazing story, which we'll parlay into this eventually, but I was off to go make my pitch to my now investment group for my facility that I'm creating. So here I was about to make a pitch to this group to ask for a huge lump sum of money to support my vision. And Mike looks at me and he's like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, well, working. Why? He's like, my weight trainer just moved to Phoenix. He's like, you're now my weight trainer too. And I'm like, okay. So on the same exact day, Mike hired me full-time as a nutritionist, strength coach, rehab coach, and I landed an enormous investment into my dream location. So that was a hell of a day. So from there, you know, I'm with Mike every day, twice a day. So I go to his office in El Segundo where he has his boxing ring set up, and I warm him up on the Neubie. It's about a 15-20 minute process. It's really quick, but keeps him moving and you know, significantly reduces that wear and tear from all the warm up and all the energy expended in warming up. And then he takes a little break, and then he comes to my house because when COVID hit, I ended up building out a home gym because I have to work. And so he comes to my home gym and weight trains a couple hours later. So I'm with Mike twice a day, 5 days a week. If he travels anywhere, you know, if possible, I travel with him. And
I was right. Tell us about the Shark Week.
Yeah, so I got to go to the Bahamas with him while he filmed Shark Week. And I was kind of his right-hand man. I had the Neubie on the boat, getting him warmed up before he got in the dive suit and got in the water. And that was a hell of an experience. I got to see the mad side of Mike, and I kind of spoke up and I put him in his place. And I didn't know if I was going to get knocked out or respected, but later that day he came up to me and put his arm around me and he's like, "Thank you so much for putting me in my place." He's like, I needed that reality check. We won't go into details of what happened, but let's just say Mike was literally scared to death of sharks and did not want to be there. So I had to kind of talk him off that cliff. It's been an amazing experience, working with Mike. I mean, I'm not one of those people that gets caught up over celebrities. Like, I don't really care. We all put our pants on the same way. There's no difference between a homeless person and The Rock in my eyes. But just getting to know Mike as a human being is definitely the best part of all this. Mm-hmm. He's such an in-depth individual. Like, people think Mike's uneducated, but he's highly intelligent. He's a major history buff. He's studied all these ancient kings and warriors and just trying to figure out the human condition of why we are the way we are. And, he'll just start spitting out stuff and you're like, where does this come from, So that was definitely one of the most intriguing things about being around Mike. And he's got a huge heart. People think Mike's this big, mean guy. And sure, he's got his moments, but, you got to remember he's been in the spotlight his entire life and all he's had is people using him and abusing him. But Mike has such a big heart, and he's such a caring, loving individual. He really takes care of those people that are in his circle. And once you're in, you're in. Like his assistant will tell me, he's like, I gotta fight Mike. Like, we'll be walking down the street, and Mike will see a homeless person, just pull out a wallet, like $500, and just hand it to him. And I'm like, Mike, that guy's a drug addict. Like, you can't just give him cash. But that's the type of person Mike is. And so definitely the greatest experience is getting to know him. But after the fight, so the Roy Jones fight came up, and unfortunately things didn't go the way that we had hoped because of COVID, as far as like he wanted to do the walkout with the machine hooked up to him with all the cords, and both of us with our shirts off walking down with me pushing the Neubie to the ring. But with COVID, we weren't allowed to do any type of a walkout. He was only allowed to have 2 guys in his corner, so I had to warm up Mike in his hotel room before he went down the elevator, got in the car, and drove over to the Staples Center to go, into the fight. So from a publicity standpoint, we didn't get to make the big impact this time around, but we got to fight May 29th, so we'll see what happens then. But the most rewarding thing I've had in years was at the end of that fight, Mike was just so happy. No one in his circle has seen him that happy in years, just because he made it through a fight. He made it all 8 rounds. And he had fun doing it, and he stayed healthy, and it was like the pinnacle of his comeback from what he's been through. 350-pound coke addict 2 years ago to stepping in the ring and fighting again when he never thought he would even live to see those next 2 years.
Man,
so that was a journey.
Story.
Yeah,
and it's incredible. You played a big role in that transformation. I know when you first were telling me about it that was, being able to help him get out of pain, help his back feel better was a major catalyst in that transformation.
Yeah.
So
Pain
can be, whether you're Mike Tyson or anyone, chronic pain is just, can steal your will to live at the, at the negative extreme.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, Mike has looked me in the eyes and has told everybody over and over again, there's no way he could have done that without the Neubie, without me. So, he's forever grateful, and he's, like he told me, he's like, I got a lot of millionaires and I got a lot of really rich friends and really high profile people that could really use you, but I'm keeping you to myself for as long as I can. So, he loves the technology, and we're going to see what we can do, see if we can potentially make him heavyweight champion of the world. I think he's got his eyes set on that.
Man, it's pretty incredible and exciting to even think about some of this stuff, but it's possible.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that he's trying to keep you in his corner, keep you secret, but you do have a platform for ways to help more and more people beyond Mike and the people you can work with one-on-one. So Can you talk a little bit, you mentioned this investor group and your project, talk a little bit about what you have on the horizon personally.
So, and again, truly I owe this to you and your technology that you created, but when I came across NeuFit, I've always been focused more on the health and wellness side. Even when I was in bodybuilding, I never took things to the extreme because I cared about health and I cared about longevity. With all my clients, I'm really big on blood work and proper supplementation to support organ function and things like that. And
well, let's talk about that a little bit, because one of the interesting things that you have done, I mean, bodybuilding, most commonly we see people, eating 6+ meals a day, and there's a need for that. There's a reason they do it. But you've totally flipped the script, and you've gone keto. I mean, you've done different things really to try to help with digestive health, overall health. Right. I mean, can you actually talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah. So, I started doing fasting in keto in between transitions between off season and contest prep, things like that. It's a down phase where you're trying to let your body heal and recover. Mm-hmm. As bodybuilders, we have to take in so much food to support our recovery and our muscle building, or you're starving yourself to death and you're putting your body through so much stress while you're in contest prep. So in between those phases, I had done a lot of research, and I picked up keto and fasting just to kind of detox my body, reset things hormonally. And when I actually, right around the time that I was introduced to the Neubie, I decided that, hey, I'm going to try to go full-time keto. So I actually prepped for 2 bodybuilding shows doing keto, which is almost unheard of. And the last show that I did, I was fasting at least 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. And again, there's no way that my body could have supported that without training on the Neubie every single day to promote muscle growth and to help promote the recovery and everything else that was needed. So as I was getting into my first kind of experience in the biohacking world was when I joined you guys at the Bulletproof conference. Mm-hmm. And so I had already had this desire for kind of health and wellness and longevity. But when I was introduced to everything at the biohacking conference, it was like this light bulb just clicked. I was so amazed at all the different technology to, improve cognitive function, to improve recovery, to improve sleep, everything. And while I was there, I ended up coming across one of my now clients and one of my great friends, Damien. Damien and his buddy were just there at the conference checking things out. Damien's buddy was ex-Navy SEAL, special ops, body's been through hell, mind's been through hell, PTSD and everything. And Damien had actually was really big into the biohacking world because he was trying to create a program to help some of these special ops veterans recover from these major injuries. And,
I remember meeting him and talking about that.
And traumatic brain injuries. So right around that time, I had kind of started thinking about, the world needs a facility that has everything in one. Especially living in LA, traffic's so terrible. So if you want to work out and then you want to get your cryotherapy, then you want to get your IV, and then you want to get a massage, you got to go to 4 different places. And that's just not time consuming. So I kind of came up with this concept of what if we do an all-in-one place with all the best technology of all the biohacking world, plus a high-end performance training center, plus all the hormones and recovery modalities in one spot. And Damien and I were talking about it, and he's like, that's literally the vision that I have. So he and I embarked down this journey of coming up with what right now we're calling the Beaker for my center. He was my original investor in things. So I hired a brand developer. We put together a business plan, Performa. And as we were looking for properties, that's when Damien got introduced to Tyson. And he went down this business path with him and had to put a lot of money, but more or less a lot of bandwidth, a lot of time and energy. So he didn't have the time and energy to focus on my thing. But Damien connected me with Tyson, so it's a win-win. And literally within 2 days after Damien saying that he had to back out, I was training some other clients, these kids, and I was telling them my investor backed out. And they're like, oh, you have a business plan? I'm like, yeah, shoot it over. So I shot it over to them, and I get a text a little later. They're like, hey, let's have lunch this afternoon. I'm like, okay. So I sit down and have lunch, and the boys look me in the face. They go, do you know who we are? I'm like, no. So they explained to me who their family was, and let's just say they have a few dollars to their name. And they said, we love this project. We love the concept of it, but more importantly, we believe in you. So, you know, we talked to our family, and we talked to the heads of the investment group, and we want to pursue this. So then I embarked on that path with them, and, you know, hooked up with their CFO, and we spent months, you know, working on a bulletproof business plan. We hired outside consultants. They've literally given me the best of the best to make sure that we have a successful business. And hopefully, very soon, we'll be in the process of signing a lease and getting things going. Obviously, with COVID hit, that set us back, you know, 10 plus months, which kind of has been a blessing. You know, as much as I want to get things rolling further along, throughout this last year, my network has grown. I've made a lot of connections within, you know, the professional sports world, within the celebrity world, you know, and those are the type of people that I'm going to need to enter my facility in order to make this a big splash and a national brand, so, you know, that we can reach the people that we want to reach. So here we are right now. One of the other reasons why I'm in Austin is because we were looking at some potential business properties here, and I was in Miami last week, and we have a location in LA that we really love. So we're all hands on deck. Hopefully we have something signed, sealed, and delivered within the next 30 days as far as location, and we can get this process going.
I love it.
You know, and one of the biggest attributes of this place is we're going to have a ton of newbies. You know, I want to have at least 10 to 12 newbies on the floor at all times, you know, because that is truly the basis of what has built this concept for me, you know, from the recovery to the therapy to the performance and hypertrophy training. It encompasses everything.
Fabulous. And we're so excited to see this come to life, not just because, you know, there's newbies there, but because of just my passion and enthusiasm for your vision, and because I love that combination of having this be a part of that holistic performance and wellness and optimization combination. It's just, I think it's wonderful, and I'm so excited to see it come to life.
I'm excited and nervous.
Yes.
It's a big undertaking.
Yes,
so.
Definitely. You're it's a new chapter, and I know you're stepping outside your comfort zone on this one, and
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, going on the limb. That's where the fruit is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm optimistic you're going to find some ripe fruit here.
I've never been more confident in anything in my entire life, though, that I know this is going to be an absolute home run hit, and I know that we're going to revolutionize not only how athletes train and perform and recover, but just how everybody approaches life. You know, and hopefully we can get to a point where we can scale this to make it much more affordable for everybody to get on.
Yeah.
So. And
that's the same thing we're thinking about with the Neubie. A lot of things in life start with, you know, professional athletes, right, or you know, racehorses, or just start with those, and then kind of trickles down. Like, you get that proof of concept, and then you're able to scale it, make it more accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And gosh, I would love that. Imagine how much better the world would be if everyone had, you know, access to these things to really equip themselves and their biology,
right,
to have energy, to be less reactive, to do the things they want to do in the world.
Yeah, and that's, you know, my original, what I named this was like a performance and wellness center, but really it's life optimization center, life enhancement center, because we're doing everything, mind, body, and hopefully some spirit part of it as well. You know, that's another journey that I've been down, is working on the spiritual side of things, and you know, how that can improve you know, performance in the workspace, and how it can improve interpersonal relationships and things like that. So we want to heal you and make you better from head to toe, inside and out, and how you believe.
I love it. And I think when we do a part 2, let's go further down that line of conversation as well.
Yeah.
For now, when if people want to look you up, what's the best place to check out Brad Rowe, see what you're up to?
Instagram is the easiest way to get a hold of me. It's Brad, B as in boy, Rowe.
Rowe, R-O-W-E.
R-O-W-E, yeah.
Yes.
Brad B. Rowe. Hit me up there. DMs are kind of hard, but my email is in my profile, and I'm always responsive to emails. So, any questions, fire away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I think your perspective and your experience is so valuable for our listeners to hear. And I'm super grateful to you, not only for coming on and sharing today, but for your partnership and friendship over the last few years, and the work that we've been able to do together. You've contributed immensely to the growth of NeuFit and our movement, and we are excited to support you in the growth of your next venture, and looking forward to lots of success and impact in the future.
And I am stealing that.
I'll get you one. I'll get you one for the new. So if you're just listening, we have this lightning bolt light bulb thing here. So we'll get you one as a grand opening gift for the
yeah. So for those who don't know, I was dubbed the name the Electrician. One of my clients called me Electrician, and I just started calling myself that. And then the icing on the cake was one day when I was working on Mike, his 2 boxing coaches and Mike, they all start laughing like, yo, they're like, we thought of a name for you. Like, what is it? They go, the Electrician. I go, you gotta be shitting me. Like, look at all my hashtags. They're like, it's solid. This is it. So you guys were grateful enough to make me some of the Electrician shirts that has the lightning bolt on it. So that's why I'm pretty keen to having one of these maybe above my bed. I think that'd be a great spot for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a good, It's not too bright either. So.
No.
That was great when Tyson was on the Joe Rogan podcast and he called out the Electrician.
First he goes to me, the mechanic. He goes, the mechanic. I mean, the Electrician. I'm like, thanks, Mike.
That was great. Great. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be able to sit here with Brad and share this with everybody. I hope you got some value out of this episode, and we'll definitely do a part 2. We got more ground to cover.
Yeah,
do that part 2.
We still got a knee to cover.
Oh, that's
full
right.
recovery of that.
That's right. We'll do the debrief. Yeah. You're actively recovering from this right now, so we'll do the debrief when that's over, and we got more ground to cover next time. Thanks again, Brad. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Undercurrent podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date as we release future episodes.